Hi everybody, thank you very much for joining me. I went to see Paul McCartney on the Get Back tour on Saturday night, 14th of December at the Manchester Corp Live Arena. This is going to be my review of it. I'm going to talk about just generally what I think a Paul McCartney show looks like in 2024 as well, and just give you sort of some of my highlights of what was frankly an incredible night. So the concert opened 18 minutes past 8, I think it was, when Paul came on stage, and the opening song was A Hard Day's Night, which is it's a great opening song because obviously you've got that chord that can just launch you into it. And A Hard Day's Night, nice, fairly easy song just to get the band warmed up, get the crowd warmed up. What I was quite pleased about, but I'm betting that there's some people weren't, although it was an all-seated venue, the moment that the lights went down, Paul came on stage, the whole arena stood up immediately and stood up for the whole show, which I liked. I know some people probably wished that they would have been able to have sat down for it, but there you go. It really added to the atmosphere, I thought. Hard Day's Night followed by Junior's Farm. Good couple of rockers just to get them warmed up, get the crowd moving. And then we're into Letting Go. So obviously just the speed just comes down a little bit at that point. And this is where we saw the introduction of a brass section. Brilliant. I'm so glad that Paul's done that on this tour. I love Wicks on keyboards. He's great, but traditionally some of the brass sounds, it's not the same as a brass section. So that was really good to have that, three guys on brass. And you could see them on the big screen playing along to Letting Go. And I'm thinking, well, I can't see them on stage anywhere. Where are they? Turns out they were actually right behind us. They were in the crowd, very close to us, and I managed to take the worst photograph ever of the guys playing brass on Letting Go. But then they were on stage after that. But that was really great to have those, and they added a lot to quite a few of the songs. For example, after Drive My Car, we got into Get You Into My Life, so obviously absolutely made for brass. That was really good to have. And then the first new-ish song, Come On To Me, from Egypt Station. So I'm glad that Paul's still doing that. We're, 6 years now after the release of Egypt Station. Paul's still singing Come On To Me from that album. And I thought it went down well. There's obviously going to be some of the crowd are not going to be as familiar with that song, but I felt that it was certainly appreciated well by presumably the more die-hard McCartney fans that were in the audience. So that was good to see, and again, of course, brilliant for the brass section to be able to play on that. Let Me Roll It next, really good version, and of course we know by now it's a bit of a cliche, but Paul then follows that with him and the band going into Jimi Hendrix's Foxy Lady, so no surprises there really. But we did get some surprises coming up very soon. We had Getting Better, and there's a point in this song where I noticed something. Now, I don't think it's possible to really talk in any depth about a Paul McCartney 2024 show without talking about his singing voice. It's obviously very different to what it was. It's not as strong as what it was. I've long held the view that, well, I'm glad that Paul McCartney has had the career he's had and done what he's done over 60 years that probably has used up an awful lot of his voice. You know, we could have had a Paul McCartney who sounds like he did 30 years ago, but he would have had to have held so much in reserve. I'm glad he's let it all out over the decades. But on Getting Better, there's been a suggestion, and I understand this suggestion very much, that the band that Paul's been backed with, you know, with Rusty, Brian, Abe, Wicks, that they're helping to mask his voice a lot. And they do carry a lot of backing vocals. But there was a point in Getting Better where Paul was supposed to be singing. He missed 2 or 3 seconds where he should have been singing. He just wasn't at the microphone. Maybe it was an accident, I don't know. But you could tell it was completely lacking vocally when Paul wasn't singing. And this was a point where the band were carrying backing vocals, so they weren't carrying that much. The bulk of it in 2024 is still what Paul McCartney's singing. And when he's not there when he's supposed to be, you can really tell the difference. So he's not being masked too much. I thought his voice sounded really good on the night. It was a lot better than I had expected it to be. The same as when he did Glastonbury a couple of years ago. It was a lot better than I was expecting it to be. Maybe I ought to raise my expectations a little bit of what Paul's going to sound like in 2024. But I thought he did a really good performance. But we then had the first, what I felt was a surprise, a song that I wasn't expecting, but really pleasantly surprised, and you could tell the audience were as well, Let 'Em In. So when the doorbell chimes came on, massive cheer from the audience and a real nice version of Let 'Em In. So that was good to hear. I'm trying to think whether I've seen Paul do Let 'Em In before live, because this was my 5th Paul McCartney gig, and I imagine I have, but I can't remember the set lists from all those gigs now. We then had My Valentine, obviously dedicated to Nancy, all very nice and lovely. 1985, really good version, good rocking version. I thought it was a little bit scaled back in terms of like the length of the intro and how quickly Paul went into the song. But it's great that he's still able to blast that out. Obviously, again with his 2024 voice, but sounding really good. I enjoyed that. Then, right, okay, Maybe I'm Amazed. We had next. Now, I've long thought that this is my favourite Paul McCartney song of all time, and I'm including everything he did in the Beatles there. It's my ultimate, and I know it's a song that he's struggled with on occasions over the past few years. Again, I was very pleasantly surprised at how good Paul sounded on that. He sounded like an 82-year-old man, of course, but he sounded pretty good on it. And the visuals that were on screen for this. Now, the visuals in general on this tour, with the screens that they've got up and everything, are far beyond what I've seen at any previous Paul McCartney show. Absolutely superb visuals, and this was a highlight visually. Maybe I'm Amazed. You see Paul on screen, those scenes from up in Scotland where he's posing for the McCartney album cover, for example, with Mary under his coat, and you can see he's all windswept, and there's the scenes of him sort of riding the horse through the field up near Campbelltown on the Mull of Kintyre, and it got to me. It did get to me a little bit. It is not the first time that Paul McCartney singing Maybe I'm Amazed live has got the old build-up in the throat and potential tears flowing. I'm not afraid to admit that. It was a beautiful moment. I really enjoyed it. Just before I go any further, I'm just going to show you. There's the t-shirt that I bought. Okay, there's the front of it. I'll show you the back as well while we're here. There's the back of the t-shirt with tour dates on it. Thank you very much. Andrew Dixon, available for all catwalk performances, should you wish. Professional model? No, not really. As well as the t-shirt, I did buy a tour programme. £25 this was. Well, I've not seen him for 16 years, so I can justify it. It's a nice tour programme though. There's 80 pages in here. Very nice picture on the front there, glossy as you can see. On the back, there you go, again very glossy. And there's some great photos in here. What it is mainly, the main contents of it is sort of talking about Paul's projects that he's been in over the last few years. So things like One Hand Clapping, The Beatles Get Back, Now and Then, Band on the Run, Underdubbed, that kind of thing. But there is also a section in here, and I know some people have different opinions about this, but I think it would be really, really poor if they don't hold true to what it says in here about the Paul McCartney archive collection, because it definitely says there, keep an eye out for news of the next releases on paulmccartney.com, and that's when it's talking about the archive collection. Now, some people are saying, well, you know, it's just that they've not updated the wording. Very lax if that's the case. That gives me at least a little bit of hope that there's still going to be some more releases in the archive collection. But yeah, essentially it's kind of a potted history of the last few years of what Paul McCartney's been up to in his career. We then went on to the sort of acoustic section of the show, and that kicked off with I've Just Seen a Face. Very well received by the audience. Nice sort of driving version of I've Just Seen a Face. And then there was this little section of a couple of songs where Paul sort of announces he's really going back into the past. And we got to hear In Spite of All the Danger, which I know Paul's been doing for a few years now. But again, I think it might be the first time I've seen Paul McCartney do In Spite of All the Danger. I can't remember if he was doing it as far back as 2008, which is the last time I saw Paul live. So he told the little story about them going into a studio, Percy Phillips studio in Liverpool, and recording this song, and we're going to do it for you tonight. And it was a good audience sing-along, with the audience doing the na-na-na-na parts. So that was really nice to see. And then he said, he expanded the story to, you know, a few years later we went to EMI, proper recording studio, and we did our first song, and this is it, and it was Love Me Do. And again, massive reaction from the crowd when he introduced Love Me Do, a real nice acoustic version of that. And then, still on the acoustic theme, it was Dance Tonight, and incredible reaction from the audience when this was announced. So, of course, Paul goes on to mandolin, and it's probably one of the highlights of Abel Arboreal's evening, where he does all his sort of silly dancing behind Paul. He's clearly enjoying himself because, well, he's got a couple of minutes of not having to do anything there, hasn't he, until he goes on to drums for the end of the song. But that was really nice to see, and the crowd really loved Dance Tonight. It was a real good version of it. Then the band go off, just leaving Paul on stage, and there was this front part of the stage that hadn't been used up until this acoustic section. And Paul introduces Blackbird. He talks about the civil rights element of the song, which some people say, oh, he didn't mention that until years later. Well, he did. 1968, there's a video of him, audio of him in the studio at Abbey Road with Donovan during the White Album sessions, and he's talking about how it was written for that. So it wasn't something that he retrospectively decided would be a cool story. So Blackbird, he plays Blackbird, and this front bit of the stage just started rising and rising and going up and up and up. And I was fairly high up in the stands. By the time this stage had come up, he was above me. I was looking up to Paul, and I'm thinking, for God's sake, Paul, don't fall off there. So a really nice version of Blackbird, and with beautiful visuals on the front of this stage while he's doing it of a blackbird. Before that came back down to earth and we could relax. Paul isn't probably going to fall 50 feet down to the floor tonight. And then it was Here Today, obviously his song to John after John's passing. No surprises there, you know, he's been doing it for years, and we got the version of Here Today you would expect to see on a Paul McCartney concert. Then it was back to the full band, and one of the highlights for me of the night, Now and Then. This was the first UK performance of Now and Then by Paul, and whilst it wasn't the exact Peter Jackson video on the background on the screens, there was a lot of that used, plus some other elements as well. So it was almost like a special version of the Now and Then video that was used for this. But that was great to hear, and again, it was really well appreciated by the crowd, so I was really glad to hear that it got a great reception. Obviously a #1 single in the UK just over a year ago, so very, very popular. But that was great to hear. Lady Madonna, yeah, he did Lady Madonna. I remember that he did that. I don't remember anything specific about it. And Jet, a good version of Jet, followed by Mr. Kite. That's one little section of the show. I don't know whether my brain was just having a little bit of a timeout or what. I remember it happening. I don't remember any specifics about it. He then did Something, of course, the old story about George gave me this ukulele. You know, I used to be a big George Formby fan, and that great version of Something. Again, it's another moment that gets me. It got me during Glastonbury, and it nearly got me again. I was getting a bit choked up. Just because of all the stuff on the screen of photos of Paul and George together over the years, and it was done very, very beautifully. Paul then announced that he wanted the audience to have a good sing-along on the next song, so we were wondering what it was going to be. And then it started, piano intro, do 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 do, obla-dee obla-da. Massive cheer from the crowd again, and we had a fantastic sing-song to Obla-dee obla-da, so that was fun. Band on the Run, fairly, you know, you're not going to get any surprises on a version of Band on the Run. It was perfectly good. Then, probably my highlight of the evening. I'd said before the show that because it was the lead up to Christmas, I really, really wanted him to do either Wonderful Christmas Time or Mull of Kintyre. I thought Mull of Kintyre probably less likely. He tends to save that for when he's, for example, in Glasgow. But he said that because it was Christmas season, they'd worked up a little treat for us. So I was like, oh, is this it? And then Wicks started playing dum 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 dum. Crowd goes mental. Absolutely fantastic. I loved that. And then a children's choir come on. And now there's videos all over YouTube of Wonderful Christmas Time from Manchester. Probably now by the time I record this, probably London as well, the O2 gigs. And towards the end, all snow starts coming down from the roof. It was actually tiny bits of paper. I was determined to catch some of this snow, and I caught one piece and I put it in the back of here. This is now one of my pride and joy little souvenirs. It's a bit fiddly, but this is the very bit of confetti that came down from the sky at the top of the arena, and I caught. That sits proudly inside my programme. There was actually when I got back home, I realised there was loads of other pieces in my hood and in my hair and all over the place. Not bothered about them. The one that I caught was my pride and joy. Wonderful Christmas Time, absolutely fantastic. I loved that. And then it's the last 4 songs before the end of the sort of main part of the show, before the encore. Get Back and Let It Be weirdly sort of washed over me a little bit. Obviously legendary songs, both of them. They just sort of happened without me taking it in too much. Live and Let Die was great. The explosions. Now, we were about halfway back in the arena, but when the explosions went off, you could feel the heat even halfway back in the arena. And there was actual fireworks, even though we were inside, there was fireworks going off at the end above. Whether they were fireworks held in place that just went like that, I'm sure they didn't send them up and get them to go through the air and bang, but that was pretty impressive. And then Hey Jude, of course you're going to have Hey Jude. Personally, I would be quite happy to go to a Paul McCartney concert and not hear Hey Jude. As much as I love it, I don't need to hear it again, but it was great. Fantastic sing-along. The crowd loved it. It's Paul McCartney singing Hey Jude, for God's sake. What's not to love? Fantastic. They go off. 2 or 3 minutes later, back on. I've got a feeling. So first time, for example, that I've got to see the famous section of the show that we know now where it incorporates the footage from of John Lennon from the rooftop. Paul singing along with John, and it's great to see. I've seen it on TV, I've seen it on YouTube, but seeing it live, it was great. I really love the fact that they've got that. If Paul does continue touring, might it be something that he could do with other songs, potentially sing along to other footage of John? I don't know, but it really was great. We got a reprise of Sergeant Pepper, and then into Helter Skelter. Really rocking version, really great visuals again. It was like speeding visuals coming at you all the way through Helter Skelter. Different colours, and it's like fast moving and really, really good. Enjoyed that. And then we get to sort of the end part really, which is the medley of Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight at the end. And again, I got a little bit emotional during Golden Slumbers for various reasons. Partly because I'm thinking, I know that this is the end coming up. This might be the last time I ever see Paul McCartney live. Who knows, maybe. There's a good chance. And partly, 2024 has been a horrible, horrible year, personally for me. And there was something about Golden Slumbers that just got me at the end of this year and made me think, it's going to be all right. It's going to be okay. And that's what he can do to me that no other performer can. It was beautiful, beautiful. Carry That Weight at the end. Paul completely messed up little parts of his guitar solos in the end. But who cares? Nobody cared. It was fantastic. And such applause that the band went off to. It was great. And I was thinking about, if somebody had been plonked into that concert at the start who didn't know who Paul McCartney was, does such a person exist? I don't know. But let's just say you didn't know Paul McCartney, you were put into that concert. Can this concert express to you who Paul McCartney is and what he's achieved. And I think in some ways it can. Seeing the love from the audience given to him gives you a sense of just how loved he is and how important he is to so many people. The songs, obviously, it tells you what a fantastic songwriter he is, because there is nobody else in the world, in history, who can put together a set list of their songs like Paul McCartney can. You can go and see, let's say you go and see Elton John. Wow, what a set list he puts together. Fantastic. Go and see the Stones. What a set list. But nobody puts together a set list like Paul McCartney's, without exception. And the band that he's got as well, obviously it's like well over 20 years now that this band has been together as unchanged personnel lineup. And at the moment where I'm currently reading the McCartney Legacy Volume 2 book and loving that, but it just reminds you again about, already in the parts that I've read, Jeff Britton's come in and he's gone, and Joe English has come in, and I know that they're not going to last too long once the tour's finished and it's going to be all change again. He's now kept this band for well over 20 years. Wicks has been with him for 35 years, since the sort of Flowers in the Dirt era. It's incredible, the longevity of these people who are with Paul now, and just a wonderful band to see. It was an incredible evening. Will I get to see Paul again? Who knows? As I sit here, he finished the tour last night, his second night at the London O2 with, I've seen the videos of Ringo joining him on drums, Ronnie Wood joining him on guitar for, what did he join him? Get Back, I think it was. The fact that Paul used his original Hofner bass last night that he had stolen from him in the early 70s, and we know he got it back last year and he used that last night for the first time. Would have loved to have been at that gig last night as well. There was a lot to love there, definitely. But yeah, an incredible night from an incredible performer, and wow, fantastic. Were you there? Let us know what you thought of it, whether it was Manchester gig or any other gig on this tour. Let us know, share your comments down below, share some love for Paul McCartney live in 2024. Have a fantastic Christmas and a New Year, everybody, and I'll be back soon. Thank you very much.